It's no secret that we love our Arabian horses and those that have come into our lives as a result. From the everyday amateur to the professional trainer, AHT Talks is here to chat about the latest happenings, get to know some of our favorite individuals, and answer some of the questions we're all eager to know. Now, here's our host, Laura Ames.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to have tonight Jody and Ryan Strand with us, and I'd like to thank our sponsors, Jarvis Insurance, Oak Ridge Arabians, Radon Arabians, Coltrane and the Conway family, and Cedar Ridge Arabians. So, good evening, Ryan and Jody. How are you guys tonight?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking.
Good, good. So maybe you guys can start off, because obviously there's a long history with the Strand name in the horse business. So maybe you can tell us how you got into the horse business, your connection with your family. Maybe you want to start us there.
Ryan, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean,
60. Well, we celebrated our 60th anniversary just a couple, 2-3 years ago, and it goes back a long time, clear back to Ed and Milt starting this place in '69. You know, they were farming up in Minnesota and doing horses part-time and dairying and everything. And then they put all their chips in one basket and decided to go into the horse business full on and give it a go in '69, and bought the place that I still reside at. And that Ryan and I were talking last night that I didn't realize how cool or pathetic it actually was. I've never lived anywhere else but here on this farm.
Well, it might be a good thing today.
yeah.
Nobody knows where Toddville, Iowa is, so I'm pretty safe. Been doing this horse business. I was 6 when they moved here, so but you know, Dad goes clear back to, well, Laura sold your dad some of his first Arabs, and did business with David and Bob's dad, Don, and had dealings with Dan Gainey and all that stuff. So it goes back, and it's rich in history. So been here a long time.
Nice. Ryan, do you have anything more you'd like to add in on that?
I mean, I kind of grew up around it, obviously, because I grew up on the place that Jody's filming this from. And so, you know, I just think that it is actually, we were talking about this last night, like, you know, Jody has literally been there almost his entire life. And I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing. I mean, the one thing in our industry is just that type of consistency is I think is very rare. And yeah, I mean, some of my best memories of just starting to show horses is a lot of older people coming up to me and telling me stories, or I knew your granddad, or, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I just got into it because it was around me, which is, I assume, how a lot of people
guilty by association. Yeah. I guess, you know, a lot of people maybe think you guys are brothers, or not quite sure. So maybe you want to share what you guys' relation is to one another. And I can see a smirk on Jody's face. So.
Oh, I've been accused of being his dad. That he's my younger brother. I'm his uncle. My oldest brother, Ron, is Ryan's dad, and Ron is also my godfather, which he says he didn't really do much of a job on that part, but I'm Ryan's uncle. We'll touch more on some of that a little later on, possibly.
Yeah. So Ryan, I'll ask you this then. Have you and Jody ever worked together in the industry? Have you ever been worked together as a team, or have you each sort of did always your own thing?
No, so I grew up on Jody's place now that, you know, at that point my grandparents owned. And so I grew up just kind of working out in the barn, which is just what, I guess if you know anything about the Strand family, and a lot of people watching this probably don't, like that's not really a request. That's kind of you're going to do that. I can remember, and this isn't a bad story, but this is a true story. I can remember being like junior high age where maybe I didn't know if I wanted to be in the barn. And on Saturday mornings, I'd get a phone call from Jody and he'd be like, hey, get out here and, help us. And I'd be like, give him some excuse. And I'll never forget, a couple times he would say, what's that sign out at the end of the driveway say? And I'd be like, Strand's Arabian Stables. And he'd be like, what's your last name? And he's like, I'd be like, Strand. And he'd say, and that's the only reason you're ever going to need, now get to the barn. And so that's kind of, I grew up around it. And then Jody is actually closer to me in age than he is to my dad. And so, our age gap is, I think it's great, but it's not that great. So we that's kind of how I got into it. And he's my uncle, but that's why a lot of people think he's my brother, which, whatever, if that's the worst thing that ever happens, it's be a good year.
I can't boss him around like I used to be able to. It's just I quit quite some time ago.
I didn't really answer your question. We worked together. So I grew up on that place. I went to work for Stan White III for a few years. I left the horse business for a couple years. And then when I came back into the horse business, I came to work for Jody, actually at the same time that actually myself, Joe Reeser and JT Keller were there for a short period of time, all at the same time. And so then, which we could talk about this later, but at the end of the day, after a while, I kind of decided to do my own thing and ended up going to Kansas City. But we did work together for a short period of time, a long time growing up, and then a short period of time when I got back into the horse business.
Sure. Jody, you got anything else you want to add on that?
Best employee I've ever had.
Ask you, sir.
It was good. We got along great. I think if we would have worked together like that for a long period of time, we wouldn't be friends anymore. But it was really good. He can make a really nice Western horse. And he learned about that even at stands, obviously. But no, it was a lot of fun. We joke around a lot, but he talked on the phone a lot.
I still do.
Did you have a cell phone back then, or was it like the flip phone, or?
No,
there were cell phones, yeah.
There was a desk phone that he spent some time at. I could never actually figure out what he was doing to profit me because he was on the phone all the time. But I'm sure he was doing something. But can I tell the story about the mare?
Go ahead. Yeah, I knew you were going to.
So I'm out there riding Hal Gibby daughter in the arena one day. And I don't know what Joe and JT were doing, but Ryan was in the office doing some phone calls for me, apparently. So I had on this mare that apparently turned out to be a little bit too much for her. And so I'm right in front of the office windows, and Ryan's at the desk, and this thing starts popping her head up and does one of those deals where then she sits back on her hind end and actually ends up tipping over. And we have a railing by our windows, and I almost fall between that, and I thought I was going to go through the window at one point. So she flops over, and I'm wrestling around on the ground, and Ryan comes running to the door. He's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, that must have looked pretty horrific for you to get off the phone and come to check." It's possible that he just swore at me and went back into the office.
Got back at it, yeah. Well,
I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that. But I think this is all I'm going to say, anyone that's worked any period in any type of family business understands that exact situation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was hoping he was okay, but I wasn't that quick to check.
Yeah. So I guess, Ryan, you sort of maybe got your start in the industry as maybe in the Western discipline, and obviously Jody's always been known for his Western horses. Today, you're known, I would say, for your English horses, and Jody's known for your Western horses. What made you take the route with the Western, or the English horses, pardon me?
You know, when I got a job out of high school, I kind of had applied to some colleges. There were a few people that, and really with Jody's guidance, that I wanted to work for if I was going to do the horse deal professionally. So I got a job with Stan White Jr. right out of high school. I think really partially because of Jody's friendship with Josh Quinnis. Josh was there at that point at White Rock. And so they got me a job down there. And at that point, which would have been not, 90s-ish. So I'm bad with dates. But at the end of the day, the funny thing is when I went to White Rock, I mean, Stan was probably showing, they probably had as many English horses as Western horses. And they might have had a slightly more Western horses, but they had a lot of English horses too. And that was back when, Stan for a minute had Boscabella and CF Top Notch. And there were tons of them, that they won a lot. And so I guess when I got there and was probably exposed to more of that, and I grew up riding all disciplines, I just liked that better. I just liked that better. And so, and I think Jody's right. I mean, we did, I think, he's my best friend to this day and we get along great. But had we worked together forever, we probably would kill each other. I think that's a fair statement. But also probably part of why I did my own deal at one point was that I did feel like if I stayed at Jody's, I would ride Western horses because that was the majority of what was coming in there. So when I moved to Kansas City, I always wanted to do the English and had some experience doing it, had a lot to learn and still do, but I was very focused on getting more English horses. So that's just kind of, you make your own path. So then when we went shopping for horses, I just slowly, I guess 20 years ago now when I got here, I would nudge people more towards saddle seat horses. And now, it's that direction. I think we were laughing, we were talking yesterday, making some lists for horse shows. And last year, I think we took 23 horses to US and there was 1 hunter and 22 saddle seat horses. So I don't know that's just what I wanted to do. And then the more you do of that, I think the more people send you those. That's
sure.
kind of.
No, you're right there. So Jody, go ahead.
You were trying to figure out what direction you wanted to go as much as anything. And Ryan he's a leader. He's not a follower. And if you're somebody's assistant trainer, you're probably following in what they're doing. And that's not who he is cut out to be. So once you figured out what to go do, and your timing when you went to Stan's ended up being about perfect because Josh went and started his own thing shortly after you got it, didn't he? And then you were at a great spot learning from the master.
Yeah, no question about that.
Yeah. Jody, for you, how did you get into the Western fields yourself? Because I know your family, I just remember when I was a little kid that the Strand sort of showed in everything. So what made you go down the Western path?
We all did back then. Everybody did everything. I used to show a lot of halter horses. As a matter of fact, when I was younger, we'd go to a show and over half of them would be halter horses. There was a time when I was probably known for more than that than my performance horses, especially the Western horses. But we grew up all showing every division. But I always kind of had a knack for the Western horses. But that was a lot what, Dad was breeding horses that took that path more. Hal Gibby wasn't going to produce any English horses. And Josh would agree, Niga and Giamigo produced Western horses. They were really hot, but thing that we were going to turn into English horses. So I tried to get that thing going, but it most everything in the barn, and it was a family farm that had to make money, and the horses that were standing in stalls, whether we bred them or that came in, they couldn't trot. So we had really hot Western horses. Josh and I, if you want somebody that can get a really hot Western horse around the ring, Josh and I can figure that out. Because that's what we
did it a few times maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your family, you guys, again, because I think I know you were raised like I was raised. Work ethic is everything, probably, you know, and I've not been to your barn, Ryan, but I've been to Jody's barn. And I wish my dad was alive still to come and go do that with me, because he would love that in the morning, you know, everybody's cleaning the stalls. It's a very hands-on, you know, your family, your kids are a part of it, doing the helping out when they're done with school. And I don't know how you run your barn, Ryan, but I'm sure you run it similar, that y'all sort of get involved with it. And so I think that's a problem for the next generation coming up, is that the work ethic is maybe not there. So maybe you both want to touch on work ethic and why you feel it's so important, and get everybody involved with all aspects of the business.
Go ahead.
You know, so I guess, yeah, I mean, I think that it's just funny. Like, it's not funny. I mean, it's the one thing about the Strand family, and I'm not referring to me, I'm referring to everyone before me, is that I just think there was a very low tolerance for laziness, just a very low tolerance. And I don't even know that that was necessarily the Strand family. I think when you grow up in the Midwest and in agricultural type setting, most people that you're around are working very hard. And I'm not saying that people in all areas of life work really hard, but I just don't think there's any way that you're going to get where you want to get, especially in this industry, without a tremendous amount of work. And then I think, you know, occasionally somebody might get to the top of the mountain with less effort. Occasionally that could happen, but I don't know that those people are people that are around for the long haul. And so there's just no way around it. The equine industry is a lot of work, as is anything else that you want to do well at. You know, owners and presidents of companies, my hunch is get up pretty early and go to bed pretty late and work pretty hard. And so we have a few employees here, and I tell everybody the same thing. You know, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do or I haven't done. I'm just not. And that's how I was raised. And a big part of that is just growing up really at the place that Jody's sitting at. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of tolerance for.
That's funny you say that, because I say that all the time too, that don't ever ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do yourself, because that's the way I was raised. It's the best thing, I think. So. Yeah, Jody, what do you got to add on that? You got anything you want to add?
Somebody sent me this on my cell phone a while back, and I just loved it. It said, you can't have $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic. And I thought that was perfect. And, you know, Ed and Mill, they farmed during the Depression. You know, they knew what it was like to just have to work from sun up to sundown. And I don't think, you know, when you're raising your kids, I don't think you can't just turn that off and say, okay, no, I'm not gonna push yourself like that. But I'm trying to instill in our kids the work ethic. And if they're coming out every morning, I think they wish they could go back to school at this point. You know, they're out.
We're ready for the homeschooling to be done.
Us make almost 2,000 bales of our first cutting, and they were sliding hay and riding the rack, and the girls are both out cleaning stalls at 7:30 because we need the help, and they've got the time, but try not to burn them out too bad. But if they decide to go into this horse industry, which, you know, I hope they do. If they don't, that's fine too, but they're going to go into it with their eyes wide open, and they're going to know how hard a work it is. And if they choose to do something else completely different, that work ethic is going to be a wonderful thing for them to have. And I think if you have that, you can be a success in anything you put your, you know, if that's horses, great. And if it's not, that's fine too, but we're not raising lazy kids.
Yeah. Okay, I keep going back to your family, but I just remember when I was a kid and my dad would talk about the Strand family, my mom, they'd talk about they were horse dealers. And so movers and shakers selling horses had a lot of activity going on. I see both of you doing that.
Did you say horse stealers or dealers?
Well, you can say stealers or dealers. Maybe you guys are stealing them and getting a deal. But I know you always are. You're getting horses moved around, I guess, is what I'm saying. And maybe you guys want to talk about how your approach towards it. You know, I mean, it's a big part of the industry, and I know you guys do it well. Ryan goes around a lot to farms and sees what's out there and everything. So
Ryan's far better at it than I am, so I'm going to let him field this one.
I think that there's no secret to any of it, but I do one thing that I have tried to do, and Jody does this too. I mean, they sell horses and do a lot of things and stand some studs, and you know, I certainly can say with a lot of conviction that I try to look at people when they walk in here looking at horses and try to sell them the correct horse. And you're always not everything is going to work, but I think part of maybe where our industry gets itself in a little bit of trouble, and I don't want to be controversial in saying this, but I'm going to say it. I just think if somebody walks in your door and wants to buy a horse from you and you look at them like somebody that might spend money with you on purchasing horses for the next 20 years, instead of only looking at the deal in front of you, that seems to work really, really well. And if deals don't work, then, you know, sometimes you try to make it right. You can't always make it right, but I try to look at this sales thing like when people come in here, try to sell them the correct horse. Try to sell them the correct horse and look at it like somebody that you want to come back and buy horses from you again. And we've had a lot of repeat buyers because we've been extremely transparent, I think, about the horses we sell, probably too much. So people say all the time, well, you tell people too much about them. Well, I want them to know what they're getting. And then I think when people know that you're gonna lay your cards on the table, they'll come back and buy more. So maybe more of a, you know, instead of everybody going, okay, let's just sell this. We're only worried about this one horse. Well, what about you look at it and go, well, hey, we're worried about this one and the next one and the next one, because a lot of people buying horses are buying them to ride themselves. The open, like even Jody, like guys that win a lot of open prizes, and he's won a hell of a lot of them, still their barns are dominated by amateur horses. So it's really more a deal of matching horses with riders than it actually is just having the best stock that you only can ride yourself, because there's a fraction of horses in training anymore that you would only show as a trainer. But it's just it's important to be honest and just tell them what it is. And that's just kind of how we've done it since we've been here. It's in how he does it too. I didn't learn that on my own. So
Jody, you got anything you would like to add on that?
No, I agree completely. I call it long-term thinking with selling horses and just how you conduct everything and doing the horse business, trying to do things that will benefit you, not just the quick sale or the quick one-time sting or something, but try to do things that are gonna, you know, benefit you for years to come. Sell them the right horse, and they'll come back and buy another one.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm going to bring this up because we're talking about selling of horses, and I know, Ryan, you and I have had this discussion before, and I've never had the discussion with Jody, but the thought about, you know, keeping your doors open for everybody and not trying to save the best horse for somebody versus, you know, just showing everybody what you have for sale. You guys want to share anything? I know Ryan's smiling, so he knows what I'm referring to. I don't know, to be honest, Jody, I've rode with you, but my dad bought the horse I showed, and then I bought one, and now I'm breeding. So I really haven't been involved with you on the buying end of it yet. But what are you guys' thoughts on that? Like, because I don't think it's good for our breed either, because then, you know, you're just, I mean, it sort of becomes hoarders of the horses. And so what is your thoughts, or if you could give anything back to the industry as advice to think about, what would you guys say?
if, and I think this is the direction you're going, but if somebody comes here looking for a Western horse of a certain type, I show them everything that's for sale. But if some of those horses aren't in their price range, we don't need to go look at that horse if their price range is much less. But they're all for sale, and if they have the amount of money to buy one of the better horses out of this barn, they will. But I'm going to do everything.
And have.
And has, yeah, exactly. But I'm going to do everything in my power to get somebody in my barn to buy the horse before I send it to my competitor, like we all probably do. But no, they're all for sale, or they're not. There's so many type of people come. They're like, they don't see horses because the owners don't want to sell them. It's hard to replace. And when the amateurs have a horse that they enjoy showing and it's good, they just don't want to sell it.
No. Ryan, you got anything you want to add on that?
Well, yeah, you and I have had a conversation about this. I mean, I just think that it's difficult when you're trying to get better horses and get better horses and get better horses, which everyone is, and I think especially here in my deal, we've done it pretty aggressively. I have gotten on a lot of planes and I have looked at a lot of horses and I have, but yeah, I mean, there's no question. There are just places you go that you know going in that you are not going to see the best horses, and you're not going to see them even if they are for sale. Even if the owner of those horses have those horses there to sell, you're not going to see them until they go through every customer they have. And I understand it. I do understand it. But I think what it creates is it creates this situation. You use the word hoarding, and it creates that situation where you go up to nationals in some of these classes and you're looking at 16, 17 horse classes, and you look at the brow bands and you can take 3 or 4 large saddle seat barns out of that class and there's hardly anyone left. And I just don't think it's healthy. And I've said this a million times. I mean, you go to these horse shows, the more curtains hanging, the better. You need everybody. You need everybody.
I agree.
That's not, that system is not conducive to getting everyone. The days of the 3 and 4 people coming and showing 3 or 4 horses on the weekend, you just don't see that anymore, which is too bad, I think, for everybody. You know, you need everybody in this deal.
This is not a question I had down for you guys, but now we're on the topic of it. And so I want to just bring it up because, you know, I sort of talked to everybody about it, but obviously our industry has been shrinking with the number of people making it our profession. There's not very many young up and coming trainers in our industry, which is for me a huge concern. You know, it's like we need bodies. So what do we do as an industry to make that, you know, I know in the Western, in the AWPA classes, Jody, what is it? They have an award, and I should know it, but they have an award they give them.
For the trainer that hasn't, but hasn't won so many national championships or whatever. Yeah. So that's a great idea. Yeah.
And I think and in the English we don't have it, and in the halter, I mean, it's just impossible for a young. It's just really hard for a young trainer to make it, like you said, Ryan, when there's 3 or 4 barns. And what do you say to the young trainer that's starting out? Because again, I think some of the work ethic probably plays into it, the time commitment, and then the building block. But then as an industry, what do we do to open the doors to these people? Because I don't think we're doing a very good job opening the doors for them.
There are young people out there that have talent that never get the opportunity to get in the ring. And one thing I've always been really proud of is that there's a group of people, Ryan and JT Keller, Joe Reeser, Jen Schmidt, and others that have worked here, and I've worked their tails off. And they earned everything they ever learned from me. I put them in the ring. You know, they want to get in the ring, and there's surprised some young trainers out there that are pretty talented. I've got a pair working for me now. They have to get in the ring. People have to see them show something nice, and then all of a sudden people know it. It makes them want to stay in this industry.
Yeah.
If you ever get to trot through the gate and get a chance, why do it? They got to get in the ring. Ryan, do you agree? I think people have to have an opportunity. And I even tell my owners, so sure, they'd always rather have me ride their horse. I'll talk them into letting them, the owner say, you got to give this person a chance. It can't always be me or have me go get a big name person. And that sometimes I have to do that, and that's fine. But somebody has to say, okay, this kid's worked hard on my horse. I'm going to let him go. I was that guy. Somebody had to let me horse to let me go in and start making a name for myself. And I think some of these big barns got to start putting their assistants in the ring and let them show something nice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've had at Cedar Ridge, we've had a history of doing it, and I think it's so important, but it's really a struggle. We just don't have many upcoming trainers, but yet I feel like some of them, they don't stay long enough in the assistant role to really get the ropes learned. They think they know everything, and out the door they go, you know. And then the grass doesn't look it always looks greener from the other side, but it's not as green then. So,
Right.
Ryan, do you got anything?
Yeah, first off, I think Jody, I think as far as developing people that have gone on and done well in this business, I think his record speaks for itself. And quite honestly, I think it's impressive. Like I do. There have just been a heck of a lot of people that have come through that place that are still involved in the industry, pretty darn successful. I guarantee you wouldn't find a lazy one. I think he does it the right way. And what I mean by that is he does put people in the ring, but you're also going to clean stalls. And when it's time to throw hay, you're going to throw hay, and you're going to get up early and you're going to go to bed late. So I'm not throwing stones here, but I just think in our business now, it's very, very easy to go work for a place where you don't have to drive a truck and trailer. You don't have to set up. You don't have to do that. You don't have to ever clean a stall. All you have to do is go out and ride, which is great. But that is not developing people who are then going to develop businesses in this business. That's not what that is. And so I think Jody's done an amazing job at, this is not a bad example, but to a different degree, kind of like the OMAC days in Minnesota, where Jerry McRae was up there, and there's all these guys that are out there working, and tons of those guys went out and worked in the industry and did it successfully. And so there's not a lot of places like Strand's Arabian Stables right now. I mean that. When you come out of there, you're probably as prepared. You're just as prepared to work hard and know what it's going to take. That's every bit as important as the horse knowledge.
Yeah.
Hell, it might be more important, actually.
I'm think back to OMAC, since Ryan brought, there are so many people that went through Jerry's deal that ended up, there's a ton of people, especially in Region 10, that went through Jerry's deal and became horse. Still are.
It is an impressive list, because a lot of them are still doing it today. So
to this day.
Yeah. The next thing I want to touch on, you guys, is the amateurs, because obviously you both have, I don't know how many horses you guys take to a show, but I have been around your stalls, showed with Jody, a lot of amateurs. So let's talk about the role of the amateur, how you guys go about finding the right horse and the process in it all.
Go ahead, Jody.
It's hard. You gotta, obviously the best, if you can put them on a great horse that's easy to ride and everything, that's obviously the best way. But just trying to match that rider with the horses, I think it's a difficult thing, but it's fun and challenging. And if they end up, somebody brings you a horse and it's not obviously going to work out, I usually just try to talk people into taking a hard look at it and find out what level they want to compete at. And maybe we need to sell that one and go find a horse that is a little easier for them to ride and something they can be successful on. then hopefully we can find that horse. They'll win. They'll have more fun and stay involved in this industry longer.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard. I think it's hard to match a horse and rider, because sometimes what they bring you isn't the right horse for them. But when we have people come here and look, usually when it's a perfect match, it looks like it from the minute they get out the horse. When Joe Frizzell bought Sensational Kid, it just looked right at the minute he got on. And Super on Air to Fame, it just looked like a good marriage at the moment. Yeah.
Ryan, you got anything you want to add? You probably do the youth deal maybe a little more than Jody does.
We do, yeah. I think it's difficult. It's just difficult. I mean, you have to try to match horses to riders and buy the correct horses for the correct people, and you're just not going to be 100%. But I think as I've gotten a little bit older, I think I have gotten better at it. And I've said this a million times. It was in an article in the Times once, maybe. It's an interesting industry because some of these horses get pretty expensive, and I think that's a good thing. I do. But when people get into this industry, sometimes the parents or the husband or the wife or however it works, it's, in a lot of places, if you want to have the nicest car, you can just go buy one and you already know how to drive. So I find myself telling people a lot, listen, this is a process. Like, you're not going to start to ride and ride for 4 or 5 years and then go compete against some of these people that have been riding their entire lives. I have 3 or 4 ladies in my barn right now that started riding when they were 50. And most of them have been top 10 at nationals now. And that's a heck of an accomplishment. And I tell them, it's a heck of an accomplishment, but it's tough. I think it's the most difficult thing there is to find the right horse for the right person, but you just be honest, I guess, and do the best you can.
Yeah. I think, I've been showing amateur my entire life, and even myself, like, there's certain horses at our farm that maybe we bred that I thought, I'm going to keep that one and show it, and I love it, blah, blah. And then it don't work out. Doesn't mean it's not a great horse, but I know I'm not going to ride that one, I'll say. So, it does. Not every horse works for everyone. So,
yeah.
I
Everybody
think
needs to, it makes them feel like a great rider.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. You guys are both practical jokers, I know. So share with us the best practical joke you've ever played on someone. We're going to stop talking horses for a few seconds.
We discussed this last night when we were talking about this thing. I think you're looking for the term smart asses.
Probably.
I don't know that we're practical jokers as much as we joke around a lot, and we might have mastered the art of sarcasm.
No practical jokes? You haven't ever did something to someone?
I don't have a great one. I don't. It's funny, we talked about this. I think the smart ass thing is pretty accurate. I don't know. We try to make it fun, and Jody always tried to make it fun. And when you're working like he works, I'm kidding. You have to make it a little fun. But I don't know. I guess we're serious about what we do, but maybe, at the end of the day, we are riding horses in circles on dirt here. It's that's what we're doing.
Jody, you got anything there?
No, I can't. I've had plenty that have been done to me, but I haven't had too much time spent on doing practical jokes.
Well, I have to share one with you guys because I probably haven't ever played a practical joke on either one of you, but I love to play. My family, that's the way we were. Everybody, my mom, my dad, my siblings. But when Kevin Price worked for us, we played a lot of jokes. One time they filled my office on April Fool's Day, filled my office full of balloons and called the local pizza place and told them that I wanted a pizza every hour. So they started coming with pizza. I was like, no, I didn't order any pizzas, you know, so, but I think one of the best ones I ever paid on them back was I ran an ad in the paper. This was back before, you know, you did anything online or anything, that they were having an estate sale at their house. And I listed the hours from 7 a.m. to blah, blah, blah. Well, they had people at their door right and early. So I do like to play practical jokes. So maybe I'll get both of you at some point. Let's talk about
doing this at a pretty high level.
Yeah, no, oh gosh. Yeah, I did it to my dad. I ran an ad. He drove this Suburban forever. And I was like, Dad, you need to get a new car. You need to get a new car. He loved it. So I ran an ad in the Minneapolis paper, an executive driven Suburban for sale, low mileage. My dad's truck had like 100,000 miles on it. My mom gave my mom and dad's home phone number. Their phone rang all week long about it.
It's rotten.
So yeah, I like to play them. So let's talk about horses.
I did do one. I remember one practical joke, and this was years ago at U.S. Nationals in Albuquerque. A bunch of us had been out having a good time, and Scoggins, who loves to get up early, and he was all tore down, packed, had his trailer all completely ready to roll bright and early in the morning, unhooked from the truck. We came back to the fairgrounds and saw his trailer sitting there and thought it would be just spectacular to back our truck underneath it. And we hooked up and moved it to the other side of the fairgrounds and put it in one of the work arenas. And he didn't think it was that funny.
Oh, didn't think it was funny? No.
Spectacular, but he didn't find much humor in it.
You know, back in the day too, when Tom Moore worked for us, him and Mitch Spurdy used to do them back and forth quite a bit. And I remember one year in Canada, Mitch sent piñatas to ourselves. They were all hanging, like we came in the morning and there was all these piñatas. Well, the piñatas were full of horse shit and they were full of condoms. And the kids started beating them. And when the condoms started falling, we're like, oh. What's this?
Hello.
So yeah, we've been known to do a few of them. So let's talk about back to horses and special horses. Ryan, I know you had your first national championship last year. Jody, you've had a few. Share with us some of the special horses you feel special. I mean, it doesn't even have to be one that's a national champion. Just share some special horses or moments in the industry.
Ryan, go ahead.
You know, I have, I looked at that question. I mean, truthfully, probably the most special horse for my career was, and I actually had to look this up, but I won the Half Arab Country Pleasure Driving at the Canadian Nationals in 2000 with a horse named Sir George RL that was bred by some Ralph and Linda Hackett, who are still customers of mine 20 years later. I had just started my business in Kansas City, and we went up there and won that class. And I mean, that horse, that was a great horse. I wish I had that horse knowing what I know now if that horse was young again, if that makes any sense. I got him when he was a little bit older, but he was a heck of a horse and was the first horse I ever top 10'd at nationals and in the Open English. And so that horse sticks out in my mind. I mean, we've had some really nice horses. Best of My Love won at nationals this year. You know, we had a lot of success with Sugar Mountain when we had him, but that Sir George horse, truthfully, is, you know, when I think about the one win that I remember the most, that is it. And it was 20 years ago now, which I didn't realize until today, actually.
Gosh. I was looking at youth results today too, and from years ago, and I thought, oh, that just seemed like a few years ago, and it was like 20 years ago. So
yeah, goes fast.
Yeah. How about you, Jody?
Oh, there's been so many that have actually changed my career and been pretty influential. But Zaffer obviously has been great for me, and he was and still is an incredible horse. Him winning the Open the first time was amazing. MD Heir to Fame, he's got a special spot in my heart. The Mystical Penny, the horse that did pretty awesome things. D. Zolliman for my first national champion, but there's been a few, but those horses would be obviously pretty special. And lately, Vicario is very special to me. Barb St. Cruz and Journey bred him, so bred by one of my clients, and lovely lady Gretchen Love owns him, and I just enjoy presenting that horse. He tries hard, and he's super special to me also. So there's been a few.
Great. I'll start with Ryan. You can tell us about Jody, and then we'll go to Jody to Ryan. Ryan, what would be one thing about Jody Strand that nobody knows, or would be surprised to know? Let's put it that way.
I mean, there's just so many ways to go here on this. I think the thing that would surprise people is that Jody has only actually worked for anyone that wasn't Strand's Arabians once, and that person was Rick Wallen, who's a pretty famous saddlebred guy. So when Jody actually chose to leave the farm and go work somewhere else, people now that know things in now time would assume he probably went and worked for a Western person, and he didn't. He actually went and worked for a saddlebred person, and I find that funny because I think he still has a real strong English in the saddle, or a strong interest, in the saddle seat side of it when he chose to go work for somebody. I think that's one thing. And the other thing, and he touched on it earlier, and I think people probably wouldn't know this, but aside from those 3 or 4 months that he went up and lived in Wisconsin and worked for Rick Wallen, he's lived at 3625 Alice Road in Toddville, Iowa his entire life. And it's amazing. I mean, he really has. I mean, he has never lived anywhere else. I mean, I think those are two pretty amazing things. He's a famous Western guy. The only person he worked for was a saddlebred guy, and he's lived there his entire life. So
yeah,
there you have
it. It sounds so pathetic when you hear somebody.
So it was probably a big trip when you went to Des Moines or something then. So.
Oh, God. We were living big, yeah.
Living it up big, yeah. Jody, what would be something that everybody would be shocked or surprised to know about Ryan?
Oh, God.
Fine, it's not going to be that bad, I swear to God.
Okay, good.
One, and I hope his barn fills up with these as soon as this thing airs. He makes a hell of a Western horse. When he was working for Stan, I remember we went to Nationals and Ryan been working there, and he's loping this thing around, huge drape in the rain. It was all put together. He can make a really nice Western horse. I think that because the name Strand was associated with Western, when he went to Kansas City, and feel free to correct me anytime I'm wrong, he didn't want to take a Western course because he was afraid he'd turn into a cowboy. So he liked English better. So did I, though, at one point. I don't know that I chose Western as much as it chose me, but because I still would love to show English. But yeah, Ryan can make a heck of a Western horse. So anybody in the Kansas City area, sign up because he's taking it now. Two, he's not adopted. I've been telling people for years that he's adopted. And he actually isn't. He is of Strand blood. Whether he thinks that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But he's not adopted, and he's not my brother or cousin. So
that has run to such a point where people will come up to me and be like, so I guess there's a practical joke. People will come up to me at shows and be like, I never knew you were adopted. This happened 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. But he just goes around telling everybody that I'm not actually a Strand, which, hell, you can make an argument for that, too. You know.
That's classic. Okay, let's talk about you guys' family a little bit, because you guys both have kids. And we touched on it a little bit earlier, but are you in hopes, talk about them carrying on the Strand's family name with each of your businesses a little bit. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. If they want to, I'd be thrilled if they did. You know, all the kids ride. They've all been lucky enough to have some national wins and everything. Janice, my wife, she loves to show. She's ridden some country horses and got her sights on a nice Western horse for her to show again. But Janice does a ton with the business, and any major decisions we make when it comes to purchasing something and running this place, it's definitely a joint decisions. Sometimes I tell her I would like for it to be a complete dictatorship, but it's not working out for me so far. She's very, very on what we do and how we do it, and they're all very, very involved. And I think with this whole coronavirus thing, I think the kids are maybe feeling at this point that they're maybe more involved than they want to be, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan?
Point out to them what the horses they're going to get to show, and then they step right up to the plate.
Ryan?
Yeah, you know, my wife Elise showed as a kid with Libby Ferguson and with Chris and Shan. She was a national champion equitation rider, and she's good at this. You know, she took a little bit of a step back from Liberty Meadows when we have two children. We have a 4-year-old Ethan and a 1.5-year-old Jack. And so she took a little bit of a step back just because we were hauling Ethan around, and it was just, it's difficult. It's difficult. And, you know, and she's getting a little bit back more involved now, and I want her to. She actually just bought a nice young horse that I'm trying to talk her into showing at nationals. And so, yeah, I mean, she'll get more involved as it goes. I mean, certainly we consider our kids our highest priority. And so it's, you know, we were at nationals, and Ethan, I remember it like it was yesterday. Ethan was 1, and our babysitter got to the camper at about 5:30 a.m. and it was midnight. We still had 3 to work. And you know, I just think for a moment there we went, well, this is a tricky situation. I kind of at that point, and it's hard to work all day with your spouse. I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying this in this business. And so, you know, she's going to become more involved again. But probably took a little bit of a step back because of our boys. As far as continuing Liberty Meadows, I don't know. I mean, you know, they're so young. They like coming out here and hanging out with Dad. And Ethan has a pony, and he comes out and rides it a little bit. But, you know, it would be great if they wanted to do the horse business, if that's what they want to do. And if that's not what they want to do, then that's great. I mean, as long as they're not lazy and they try and work hard at whatever they want to do, I don't care what they do. They can do whatever they want as long as they try hard at it.
They try hard at it. Well, perfect. In closing, guys, I'm going to ask you each the question: if you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
Go ahead, Jody.
I wish it wasn't so expensive for people. You know, we talk about the shows being smaller and smaller barns being able to stay successful and be alive in this industry. And I just wish that there was a way that it didn't have to be as expensive as it is, because I think it weans out a lot of people that could fall in love and enjoy the horse industry if it was a little more feasible for them to do that. And it is, I know it is expensive, but if there was a way that we could get things to where we could get more people involved.
Yeah. Ryan?
I mean, the same. I just think you need everyone. I mean, the one thing I've gone on my soapbox a little bit about this, for good or better or worse. You know, I think some of these big farms are getting too big. I believe it, and I don't think it's healthy. I just don't. I mean, I think you need everybody. And I think when you have so many horses under the care of certain places, it really slowly, I think, has pushed people out of the industry. And I don't blame anyone for wanting to have a large business and be successful. Everyone wants that. It's not, I just think that you need every person. And there used to be a time where there were a lot of people going around showing a few horses, and you just hardly see that anymore. I mean, it is big barns. And I think, you would know way more about this, Laura, statistically, but I think less of them. I mean, I think it's declining because we just don't have maybe a great plan to enough lesson programs or enough entry-level things or enough entry-level shows to try to get more people involved in this breed. That's the biggest problem. And I do think it's getting top heavy. I do. I mean, it is. Yeah. And I don't know the solution, but I think it's certainly a problem.
Yeah. In my opinion, I always say this, and I started out, and I didn't start out up here. I started down here going to the Class A shows. It's a big deal to go to regionals and do well. Had no dreams and aspirations of even showing at nationals. I showed a lot of years before, and back then there wasn't a youth nationals. And now it's like, you own a horse, you get into I just say from a lesson program, there's no middle ground. You're just in a big hurry to get to the top. And that, I don't think that's a good thing, because I always tell parents from the lesson programs that are trying to grasp it, what sport could your child go compete at that they're going to go do it for 3 years and going to go compete at the world championships or an Olympics? That's unheard of, So right. I think we got to get back to like the levels, and nationals are not for everybody. I mean, I know financially they need to make it that way for trainers and, the shows putting it on, they think that way, but that's not, in my opinion, that's not the best interest of our breed. We got to get back to somehow having a middle ground. So there's places to build. You go from the beginning level to the middle ground to the upper ground, but I know people would have the argument with me that think differently. They think nationals should be for everybody, and it wasn't what it was 20 years ago. Maybe they're right, but I think that we got to do something different, and especially during the COVID times, because after every major show, we came out of nationals last year, we lost a few trainers, they left the business. We came out of Scottsdale, we lost a few trainers, they decided to go do something different. I can't imagine what some of those trainers are doing in the COVID times if they didn't attend nationals or they didn't attend Scottsdale. I mean, they've been sitting at home for a year and not having any income coming in, and so I feel for them. And so, so you guys Jody, you're off to Region 11 next. Ryan, you're off to Region 14. That's you guys' first horse shows of the year. You're excited, I'm sure, to get on the ground and hit the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's time to go somewhere. And we've got horses that are going to show at the regional level that haven't been through a class yet. So it's going to be fun to see how smart we look, but we're ready to go.
Yeah, I hear ya. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for tonight, and I'm sure I'll see you at Region 14, Ryan. I'm not sure, Jody, you're showing my horse at 11, but I'm not sure if you're seeing me at 11 yet.
Okay.
So,
well,
thank you.
Yeah, it was fun, guys. So cool. Well, you guys have a great night, and I'll be in touch with both of you.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.